This happened to me just a few weeks ago, and it hasn't left my memory since. I'm 20 years old and just moved into a small apartment complex a few miles from my parents' house. I've never lived alone before, so this whole situation was pretty new to me. The complex was 3 stories tall and had 6 total apartments. The only one that was available was on the top floor, so that's the one I had to go with. Anyways, I finally got everything in and was able to relax for a little bit before bed. I think the time was around 10 p.m., but I still had to set up my bed and eat dinner. The only thing I really had to eat was ramen, so I started the stove and put a pot of water on top to boil. As I was waiting, I heard the floor in front of my apartment creak softly. I wasn't too sure at first if the complex just made noises or if someone was actually at my door. Either way, I figured I should just check in case someone was there. I opened the door slowly. "Hello?" I said softly, as there was an older man standing a few feet from my door, with his back facing me. I assumed he lived in the neighboring apartment, as the door was directly in front of mine, which was where he was facing. A few seconds went by, and he turned softly and said, "Sorry," then began to walk down the stairs. I closed the door and checked on the pot of water. I started to feel a little bit uneasy, mostly because he didn't go into the neighboring room. There would be no reason for anyone to come up to the top floor unless you lived there. Anyways, I finished making the ramen and tried not to think about it too much. I was just excited to finally have my own place and live alone for once. This was a big accomplishment for me, and I didn't want to be creeped out for my first night. So I finished making my bed and turned all the lights off. I stayed up on my phone for a little bit before eventually dozing off. I want to say I fell asleep around 11 or 12, but I'm not too sure. However, I do remember reading the clock at 1:29 when I woke up after hearing something from the room below mine. It sounded like a soft shuffling of footsteps. I laid there waiting to hear anything else. It took maybe 5 minutes before I heard the creaking floor from outside my room again. I was beginning to panic a little bit, running through my mind over and over to try and remember if I had locked the door after opening it earlier that night. As I waited in silence, I heard the subtle clicking sound of the doorknob trying to turn. It was locked. I waited for anything further to happen, but after a few seconds I heard the neighbor's door open and then shut. Relieved, I got out of bed and quickly double-checked to make sure my front door was locked. Then I went back to bed. I figured it must have been the old man who had possibly just gotten confused as to which door was his. When morning came, a loud knock came at my front door. I was greeted by 2 police officers. They asked me if I had experienced anything unusual last night or if anything was missing. Apparently a man had robbed 2 apartments last night, both having forgotten to lock their doors. I told the officers everything and they thanked me and walked back downstairs. I'm not sure if they found the man or not, but nothing happened since. Just thinking about the whole situation makes me really uneasy, and I can't help but wonder what would have happened if I had forgotten to lock the door that night. When I was a kid, around 10 or 11 years old, my house was on the end of a low-traffic neighborhood road that ran up against a large forest. I would often run around, play games, and go for walks with my friends out there behind my house. Of all the forests and woodsy areas I've seen, this one seemed to be the most dense. I mean, the trees were so close together at some parts of the forest it was hard to walk next to a friend without having to constantly move behind or in front of them to pass between 2 trees. Anyways, it was a regular Friday night, and I invited my best friend over to hang out, since there was no school tomorrow. By the time he came over, the sun was beginning to set. Still, we wanted to hang out in the woods for a while before it got too dark. We grabbed some heavy flashlights just in case and headed for the trees. We walked for maybe 10 or 15 minutes before finding a fallen tree which we sat on and just talked. This was one of our favorite things to do, just sit in the woods and talk about whatever we felt like. I'm not quite sure how long we were actually sitting there, but we definitely got lost in the conversation for a while, because when I finally looked up, the forest was almost completely covered in darkness. Initially, neither of us were too nervous, as we knew our way around the forest, and we figured we would just start heading back before it got pitch black. We turned our flashlights on and started walking. I will admit, though, I was definitely a little creeped out. It was almost completely silent other than the crunch of the leaves from our footsteps, and we could only see a few feet ahead of us because of the dense trees blocking the view. After 2 or 3 minutes of walking, we both suddenly stopped, as we both heard the very distinct sound of a person walking slowly across the leaves just ahead of us. They must have been behind some trees, just 15 to 20 feet in front of where we were standing. I couldn't stop myself from wondering, why would anyone be going for a walk alone in the middle of the woods at this time of the night? I tried to stay calm, but just as we thought the person was beginning to get further away, the footsteps stopped. My friend and I both froze. We looked at each other in fear and confusion. It felt as though suddenly everything had become completely silent. As I stood there looking at my friend, I had a rush go through my body of a feeling that I was in immediate danger. Almost a split second later, I heard leaves crunch from just a few feet behind us. My instincts kicked in, and I took off running straight in the direction of my house. As I ran, my shoulders were constantly bumping into the trees, as it was hard to navigate through them with barely any light. I heard footsteps crunching the leaves behind me. I hoped it was my friend, but I was too scared to look back. After maybe 30 seconds of running, I heard the footsteps take a sharp turn to the right and drift off in the distance. This made me even more terrified that those footsteps were not my friend's, and made me wonder where my friend was and if he was in trouble. Eventually, I made it to my backyard and immediately went in my house through the back door. I was out of breath. I peeked through the windows, looking to see if my friend would show up, but after a few minutes passed, I began to really worry. My parents came downstairs and asked if I was okay, as they saw the panicked look on my face. As I was telling them everything, the doorbell rang from the front of our house. My dad nervously cracked open the door. My friend immediately pushed the door open and ran inside. He said after I ran, he froze in place, not knowing what to do. He heard 2 sets of footprints go off in my direction after me, and after a few minutes he decided to run towards my house as well. My parents called the police to report the incident, but nothing ever came of it. My friend and I still talk about it to this day, coming up with new theories about what really happened that night. Part of me wishes that I had looked back to see who was chasing me, but I know in a forest like that, there was no way I would have gotten 5 steps before running straight into a tree. Anyways, that is still the most terrifying experience I've ever had, and ever since then, I always get uneasy when I'm around a forest at night. It was a Saturday night. My friends and I were getting ready to go see the opening act at a local bar's music night. We lost track of time and realized we needed to leave right away so we wouldn't miss it. I hurried and gathered my wallet and keys, and we rushed out of the house and got into my car. Luckily, we got to the bar just in time to see the show. After a few drinks, I patted my pockets down, and to my surprise, I couldn't feel my phone. I checked every pocket and asked all my friends if they had seen it, but it didn't turn up. They helped me search the bar around all the tables and the areas that we'd been. Eventually, we gave up and tried calling it on one of my friend's phones. After 2 rings, someone answered the phone. "Hello?" I said. They didn't speak, but we could hear them breathing on the other line. After a few seconds, I started to speak again, but they immediately hung up. I was frustrated that someone had stolen my phone, but I figured I'd take care of it tomorrow, as it was getting late and there was nothing I could really do about it right now. About an hour later, we left the bar and I dropped my friends off at their homes and started heading back to my house. During the drive, I was running through my memory of the last time I had my phone on me. As I was pulling into the driveway, I came to the conclusion that the last time I remember having my phone was on the bed while I was getting ready to leave. The more I thought about it, the more I started to get creeped out as I was getting out of my car. I went to the front door and unlocked it and walked inside cautiously. I slowly made my way over to the bedroom and turned on the lights. Sure enough, my phone was sitting right there on the bed where I thought I had left it. I searched the whole house to find any trace of someone having been there, but I couldn't find anything at all. That night I had trouble sleeping, as every little noise made me uneasy. I told my friends about it the next day, and they all agreed it was creepy. We also ended up agreeing that calling the cops probably wouldn't lead to anything, so we ended up leaving it at that. Nothing else ever happened in the following years, but it still keeps me up sometimes thinking about what really happened with my phone that night. I was lucky enough to live in a large house when I was a kid. My house had a side room towards the back side of the first floor. My siblings called it the second living room because that's basically what it was. It had an old recliner, a small table, and a mid-sized couch. That's it. We hardly ever sat in there. One morning, I woke up sick. I told my mom, and she told me to take the day off from school and stay home. My siblings had to be at school, and my parents worked, so that meant I had the house to myself. I laid around in bed for a few hours, until around 10:30 a.m., when I heard steady walking coming from the first floor. I thought nothing of it at first, as I just assumed maybe my mom went in late to work like she did sometimes. I needed something to eat anyway, so I stood up and went downstairs to the kitchen. I made it about 3 feet in front of my kitchen's walk-in doorway when I locked eyes with, not my mom, but a 6-foot-tall man wearing raggy and ripped-up clothes. I was frozen in fear. I just stood there. It was only for a few seconds, but it felt like hours had passed. The guy just stood there and watched me too. No expression or anything. I eventually pulled myself out of the shock and bolted for my bedroom upstairs. I didn't hear him following me, but I got in my bedroom and locked the door and moved a dresser in front of it anyways. I pulled out my phone and instead of calling 911 like I should have, I called my mom. I screamed into the phone telling her someone was in the house trying to kill me. She told me not to leave my room for any reason and call the police, so I did. 15 minutes later, the police finally show up, as I could see through my bedroom window. I watched them enter the house before I left my room to run down to them for safety. I told them everything that happened. They did a quick search of the home and found nothing. Not a single person or broken window or door. My parents came home shortly after and were furious that the guy had not been caught. I was extremely angry as well, but I was also relieved that I was alive. The police began packing their things, but as one of the last officers was on the way out, he noticed a Walmart bag sticking out from under our couch. It was that couch in the side room that no one ever used. And, well, what do you know? We found hundreds of trash bags and week-old rotting food under the couch, along with some of our personal items like wipes, water bottles, and we even found a bag of piss. Whoever that man in the kitchen was had been living under our couch for weeks. I can't comprehend how none of us had smelt any of the garbage that was piled up under there for the entire time he was there. The fact that he never made a single noise under there just baffles me. We've since cleaned that room out completely and turned it into a breakfast nook with wooden chairs so no more people can break in and find free housing in them. I go off to college in a few months, so I won't have to live in fear of that incident happening again for much longer. But I still think about it every time I wake up with a cough. Although it doesn't seem like it, this happened quite a while back, probably over 10 years ago. I was in the later years of high school and was home alone. My parents were at a wedding that required them to stay at a hotel, and my brother worked the night shift. At that time, my family lived in a very well-known East Coast city, inside of a blue-collar neighborhood that was just starting to take a nosedive. As a teenager, I was a bit of a loner. I wasn't a nerd or anything. I was a big dude who had friends and went on dates, but I'm naturally an introvert, so I cherished the rare alone time that I got. This weekend I was looking forward to engaging in my normal empty house routine. Play some PlayStation on the big screen TV, order some late takeout dinner, and watch some Dragon Ball Z. Then, around 2 a.m., fall asleep on the couch with my old dog, Cecil. Cecil was an old beagle, and had been in our family for about 8 years now. He was quiet and peaceful, and spent his time begging for food and sleeping. Unlike most beagles, Cecil never howled or barked. He was more than content to rest his head on your lap and spend the night there. Anyways, it was about 1 a.m. now, and I had just finished the last slice of pizza and was starting to doze off on the couch, when I hear a bang coming from the back alleyway. I didn't think much of it. Anyone who's lived in the city knows noises happen at all moments of the night. Cecil's head popped up off my lap and the hair on his back stood up. He's always been a bit skittish, so I calmed him down and started dozing off again. But not more than 2 minutes later, I hear another bang. Cecil did something I never saw him do before. He leaped off the couch and ran like the winds towards the door leading to the basement, barking and growling like a dog twice his size. The look on his face reminded me of a German Shepherd canine unit. I'd never seen him act like that before, which got my adrenaline pumping. Through the dog's barking, I can now make out a persistent banging. There was a seldom-used door in the basement that led to our back alleyway. It was old and rusted and was hard to open, even with a key, and it made a lot of noise. I suddenly realized that someone was trying to break into my house through my basement door. For those who haven't lived in a bad neighborhood, it's usually general knowledge that if someone tries to get into your house and moves on after they realize the door is locked, they only wanted your stuff. But if someone is persistently trying to get into your house despite the door being locked, well, they want you. Knowing this, I rushed upstairs immediately to grab a heavy wood baseball bat that I kept under my bed for situations like this. Then I head down to my basement. I probably should have ran, but I was a macho teenager with a tough guy complex, and I had nowhere to go. While I'm heading down the stairs to my basement, Cecil blows past me with the speed and aggression of a dog half his age. Suddenly, I hear a man's voice say, "Oh fuck," and the banging stopped. I didn't call the cops or anyone else, which was probably the dumbest thing I've ever done. I just sat up for the rest of the night with the bat in my hand. My brother came home that morning, and I told him what had happened. He went to the basement door to take a look, and when he gave it a tug to open it, the whole door fell off. This psycho was one good shove away from getting in my house, but old Cecil scared him off. I'm pretty sure that lazy, fat old dog saved my life. When I tell this story to people, they dismiss his actions as a dog doing what a dog is supposed to do. But I can tell you that Cecil never barked or moved that fast in his life. It was almost like he knew the urgency, like he knew that door was going to give. A few years back, we had to have him put down because he just had no will to live anymore. Before the injection, I got a moment alone with him. I thanked him one last time for his friendship and for what he did that night. At this point, I was a grown man with a wife and kids, but I'm convinced none of that would have happened without old Cecil. I was around 13 at the time of this story. I still live in this house, and I still don't know what this was. A thunderstorm had just started, and due to our area being in Tornado Alley, I always slept downstairs in my dad's room, just to be safe because I'm a heavy sleeper. It was around 12:43 a.m., sitting on my phone watching YouTube to pass time. As the rain hit the house, I heard my dad's intense car bass pull up into the driveway. I lived in a small town, and everybody knows everybody, and he was the only one with a car like that. I assumed he would be coming downstairs to sleep since he had been working all night. And so I collected my things and my dog and sat at the edge of the bed waiting. After waiting for a few minutes, I ended up walking over to the window that faced directly towards the driveway. Through this window, I could see the entirety of the driveway, so there was no way any car in the driveway wouldn't be seen. But there wasn't a car. There was nothing. I thought I had probably just mixed up a car passing on the highway next to us, because I remember my dad had also said that he would only be home around 2 a.m. I walked over and sat back down, but almost immediately I realized the car bass sound never left the driveway. I was spooked, but eventually I thought nothing of it, seeing as people park randomly around houses a lot. A few minutes passed by, and I heard my dad's cough in the garage. I thought he was home, and I was relieved because the storm was beginning to pick up. But it only frightened me more when I realized I never heard the garage door open. I was too spooked to look out the window again, and so I waited. A few minutes passed by, and the rain now hitting the house harder, with thunder and lightning getting louder and brighter. I heard my dad's voice call out my name softly. At that moment, I realized that there was someone in my house, or something. I had frozen place, listening. I turned and looked at my dog, noticing his confused look towards me as if he didn't hear anything. I slowly sat back down and just laid as still and quietly as I could until I eventually passed out. I woke up at 4 a.m. and immediately ran to the window and saw my dad's car, and so I ran upstairs. I told him everything that had happened. I don't believe in ghosts or anything, but I knew something had called my name that wasn't my father that night. I can't help but wonder what would have happened if I had walked up those stairs and followed the voice. We don't know what really happened that night, but I can't help but feel uncomfortable in my own house now.